What if there were 5 techniques that if you implemented them, you'd see an immediate improvement in your dating life, in the amount of women you were meeting, in the amount of dates you were going on, the women that were attracted to you? What if I told you there are actually 5 techniques, and I'm gonna give them to you in this video? Hi, my name's Bobby Rio, and recently I was talking to one of my coaching clients, and he said to me, Bobby, I just need to get back out there. I need to start doing better. Just give me a few things I can do that I'll see success quickly with. And I started to go into some mindsets and some attitudes because I really believe that mindset and attitude is the foundation of it all. But he says, no, I know all that. I just want things I can go out, practice, and see an improvement. He's like, I just need to see some improvement. And it got me thinking, and I gave him the 5 techniques I'm going to give you. And about a week later, I did a session with him, and he was like, holy crap, I can't believe how well this stuff worked. So I want to tell you exactly what I told him. These are 5 techniques that if you start using them, you will see a difference, right? They are techniques that work. And they're things that anybody can try out. You can try them all out immediately, and you can have a lot of fun with them. So what are they? Well, technique number 1 is something that I learned years ago, and it's called an opinion opener. So probably the biggest obstacle that guys have in meeting more women is meeting more women, right? They walk around and they go, oh, that girl's pretty, that woman I'd like to talk to, but they never do anything, right? They sit in their head, they go, what do I say? How do I start a conversation? Whether you're out at a bar, whether you're at a party, whether you're just sitting in class next to a girl or sitting at work next to a coworker, and you're like, how do I spark up a conversation? Well, something that I learned years ago was using what I call an opinion opener. You may have heard of this. If you haven't, you will thank me, because this is the easiest way to start a conversation. An opinion opener is where you simply use a woman, her opinion, to start the conversation. So maybe you're out at a bar and a woman walks by and you're talking to your friend and you say, hey, hold on, I need a girl's opinion on this. And you say, hey, can I ask you something? I need a woman's opinion. And then you ask her a question, right? Now, the question could be anything, anything in the world, right? But it tends to be best if it's something related to something that you're talking about, right? So an example is, I was having a conversation with my friend recently, and my friend was on a dating site. He had met a girl, and she had been kind of just texting him a lot, and he wasn't really interested. And he wanted to kind of end it, but he didn't want to come across as a dick and say, hey, listen, I'm really not into you. So we're talking, and a girl stands there, and I say, hey, we need a girl's opinion on this. My friend is trying to end this relationship with a girl, and he wants to let her down easy. What's the best way to do it? And of course, it was an innocent question. The girl starts talking. Now her and my friend start talking, and all of a sudden, they're in the middle of a conversation, right? And it goes well. And it all started with asking her a question. That question could be anything. I remember years ago when I learned this technique, I was nervous as hell to start conversations. And I was out one night, and somebody mistook me as a drug dealer for whatever reason. I was walking into a bathroom at a bar, and somebody goes, I don't know if I was dressed like a drug dealer or if I resembled a drug dealer that he had bought from, but for whatever reason, somebody asked me that. So I walked back out to my friend, and I hadn't talked to one girl all night. I was scared shitless. This was like years ago when I was really trying to get better at this. But having had that altercation in the bathroom, I go, why don't I ask an opinion? So a girl was standing there, and I go, hey, I need your opinion. Am I dressed like a drug dealer? I had like three different people come up to me today and ask me where they can get pot from or Coke or whatever. And she goes, what? No. And we start talking, and sure enough, we got into a good conversation. So an opinion opener is just anything that you can do to indirectly start a conversation. It doesn't have to be at a bar. You could be walking down the street. I mean, asking directions technically is an opinion opener, but the best kind of opinion openers are ones that really require an opinion, because women love to give their opinion on something. So asking, what's the best way to let a girl down, asking, the classic, I have an opinion. Me and my friend are having an argument here. Who lies more, men or women? And then she'll give her opinion. Those are great, subtle ways. You will not believe how many conversations you can start if you take advantage of opinion openers. Now, the second one kind of ties into opinion openers, and it's called a time constraint. So for me, one of the big issues I had starting conversations was not so much fear of rejection. My big fear was the fear that she would go, oh no, I'm going to get stuck talking to this guy. Because back then my conversation skills were horrible. And I knew that after a few minutes I would probably run out of steam and start saying, whoa, so where did you grow up? Oh, did you have a lot of brothers and sisters? And, And I knew that at that point it would get really awkward. So I learned something called a false time constraint. And that is where when you start a conversation, whether it's using an opinion opener or anything, you go, hey, I got to get back to my friend in a second, but I just wanted to ask you something. And what's great about this is it kind of creates this constraint that you can now use. And she can feel comfortable because in her mind, she's like, okay, I'm not going to get stuck talking to this guy for the next 2 hours because he's got to get back to his friends. And in your mind, you're like, well, the minute I sense an awkwardness, I can say, all right, I got to get back to my friends, and it won't be weird because you've already planted that idea. Now, if you guys hit it off really well, obviously you can say, hey, my friends can wait, and we'll talk a little longer. But it is also good to do the walk away and come back to her and show that you are willing to walk away. But the false time constraint, it takes a burden off of you. It's almost like jumping out of a plane with a parachute because you know that at any time you can pull that cord and go, hey, I got to get back to my friends, right? So it's great to combine these two. The third one is something you can have fun with, and this is called a disqualifier, right? So let's say you start talking to a woman. Maybe you used the opinion opener, you used the time constraint, and now you use something like a disqualifier because, of course, a lot of guys get really nervous and they think, well, if if I'm showing too much interest, she's going to kind of back off. So what you do early on is you create this uncertainty, right? Because you are going to be showing interest. The fact that you're talking and flirting and to create attraction, you do need to express interest. But then you confuse her a little bit with a disqualifier, right? And a disqualifier could be like, hey, you're a really cool girl. You're going to be like my new best friend, right? You say something like that. Or, I really like you. You're like my little kid sister. And what you're essentially doing in her mind is you're going, wait a minute, he's being all flirty, but he just called me his kid sister, or he just said I'm his new best friend. And now there's this confusion in her mind. And for women, they like that confusion because it presents a little bit of a challenge to them. It's almost like her going, I'm going to show him I'm not his little sister. I'm going to show him I'm not his friend, right? Instead of the other way around where she's the one going, oh, you're like my new friend. You're doing it to her. You're creating this disqualifier that in essence buys you time because it kind of gets her going, whoa, maybe he's not hitting on me. What is this? And it buys you more time to create attraction. And it also instigates a little bit of the chase in her part. So the next technique is called a routine. And a routine was something very popular back in the day when a lot of people were using like the mystery method style of meeting women. And a routine is essentially a pre-planned conversation that you have, okay? It's almost like a script that you can go into in a conversation. And what they're really good for is having something ready that you can use to move a conversation in the direction you want to go. Because a lot of times you start talking, the conversation starts going in a kind of a neutral area where you don't sense you're creating any attraction and the conversation kind of fizzles and you're like, how can I get this conversation back on track? Well, a routine is something you can use to get it back on track. And I'll give you an example, right? I give this one all the time. It's one of my favorites. And I must have used this routine literally hundreds of times back in the day. And the routine was also sort of an opinion opener, but it was in the middle of a conversation. So I would go out, and I can remember one time specifically, my friend and I were talking to these two women, and the conversation started, you know, they were like a little older, and they didn't really, you could tell they probably were divorced and were coming back into the dating scene, and they really didn't have great flirting or conversation skills. So they were actually the ones interview moding me and being really boring, and I was like, this is not a fun conversation. So she's asking me, so what, you know, where did you go to college? And I'm like, I don't want to answer this question. So I go, hold on for a second. Before I answer that, me and my buddy here, we were just talking, and I got to ask your opinion. Do drunk I love yous count? And she's like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, do drunk I love yous count? And she's like, what? And I'm like, my friend here, the other night, he was with a girl. She was really drunk, and she says, I love you to him. But it was the first time she ever said it. And he's like, does that count? Do I like have to say it back now? Is it weird? And then the woman, of course, women love this kind of conversation. She's like, oh, wow, huh, you know, and she's like, starts talking and remembering things. And then, because I knew that to bring some sexuality into the conversation, I say, well, what about during really good sex? What if you blurted out during really good sex? Does that count? And she's like, huh, you know, and now we're talking about that. She's like, well, if it's really good, you know, and now we went from this boring conversation about where I went to college and what do I do for a living to just saying I love you during really, blurting out I love you during really good sex count, right? With one question, right? One routine, which is do drunk I love yous count? And the more of these sort of routines you have, the more you're able to make sure that you can have these good conversations because you're ready, you've got this, right? I have literally, you know, thousands of this type of material from over the years, things that I've used personally, things that my friends have used and told me and now I use, and things that I've given students and they use. And the more of these, the better. So the fifth technique that I recommend trying out is a barrier, okay? And barriers are good if you want to say something sexual to create sexual tension or to express sexual interest, but you put a barrier in front of it so that it kind of creates some tension and it also lets you off the hook a little bit, right? So maybe you're talking to a woman and it's going well and you'd go, a barrier would be saying something like, you know, if I wasn't such a good Christian boy, I'd be totally trying to get in your pants right now. So you're telling her you would be getting in her pants, but you're saying I'm not going to because I'm a good Christian boy. So it's like this barrier, but it's a false barrier, right? You both know it's false. You know, saying something like, you know, this isn't, you as my coworker is not going to work out. You're way too distracted. You're too hot. It's going to be distracting, right? You're creating this barrier, like we're coworkers. You're too hot. It's distracting. Anytime you say something, I mean, it could be something as simple as like, you know, we're not going to get along. We would fight all the time. We'd have makeup sex. We'd fight all the time. Then we'd have makeup sex. It would just get exhausting, right? So you're telling her like this idea that you guys would fight all the time, have makeup sex. You're not going to get along. It would be too exhausting, so we can't be together. But at the same time, you're saying all this stuff about you two having sex and making up and having sex and making, you know. So it's a barrier, and it's a really fun way to introduce these sort of things into a conversation without it getting weird. So these 5 techniques, the opinion opener, the time constraint, disqualifier, routine, and barrier, there's literally nothing stopping you from using them immediately, right? These aren't things that you have to, I mean, the way I explained them in this video, you can start using them. Having the right mindset, putting high value on yourself, being confident, all that stuff is super important, but all of this kind of is almost like a cheat sheet, right? It's almost like a way around that, because by having an opinion opener, you can appear confident starting a conversation because you're not going in there going, hey, my name is Bobby and I saw you from across the room and wanted to talk to you, and you're nervous saying it. I mean, saying, hey, I got to ask your opinion on something. You can say that with confidence. So now you appear more confident, right? The time constraint makes you more confident because you no longer worry that you just jumped out of a plane without a parachute. You know you can leave at any moment with, hey, I got to get back to my friends. Disqualify. You can also use a time constraint when you're asking a girl out on a date. If you're kind of nervous, you can be, hey, listen, I only have like an hour on Tuesday, but it would be great to have a beer before I get to wherever I'm going. Because now that time constraint allows her to go, okay, we can meet up, and if it doesn't go well, it's only an hour, right? Disqualifiers, really fun. Routines will change your game if you start using them. And the barriers you can have a lot of fun with. So again, if you like this stuff, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit like on this video, leave a comment on things that you would like me to cover in future videos, And if you want a lot of conversation stuff, I have a book called Charismatic Conversation Secrets, $9. It's literally 10 years of my favorite conversation-related techniques. You can check it out on the link below, and I will see you on the next video.